Hi, I'm Dr. Lacher with Spring Hill Equine and the podcast Straight from the Horse Doctor's Mouth. Today, by popular patron request, we are going to do a video on the pre-purchase. What exactly does that mean? It's what you as an owner can look at as you go to look at a horse for sale. It's what I recently did looking at a horse for purchase for myself, not as a veterinarian, but as a potential horse buyer. We're just going to go over some of the basics that you can use to rule that horse in or out, or specific questions you may need to ask your veterinarian to evaluate on this horse for suitability for what you want to do. First rule of thumb when it comes to the pre-purchase or evaluating any horse to buy is that you want to watch everything. So I always observe, how does the horse walk to me when I'm first meeting them? Or if I'm at a stall, how does that horse interact with me when I walk to the stall? Do they walk up to me? Do they hang out in the back? You know, kind of what's going on. I'm going to run through their legs real quick if they're walking and just see, are they taking straight steps toward me or is the leg swinging out? Again, big thing. Watch everything, and if possible, have a third-party person who can video everything for you that you can go back and watch. We're going to talk about that more in a second. Next, in the watch everything category, observe how they handle being tied. You know, things as simple as being on cross ties. For many of us, that's a fact of life. We don't have extra people around to just hang out and hold our horses on the cross ties for us while we saddle up or get ready to do our thing. So see, you know, how does the horse handle being tied? Do they handle it well? Are they spooky? Are they spooking at things in the environment that are moving? Or, you know, through the tight area that we walked in, did they handle that well? Think about all of those things in relation to what you want in a horse. And those are all very key things. Okay, on to the horse itself. Once I have the horse where we're going to get ready to do all of the other activities of a trial, I start at the beginning. So I start at the head. There's a few things that we want to look for on the head that are quick and easy for owners. One is, can they see okay? There's a really easy test that we use for that called the menace. It's not 100%, but it's pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to come towards her eye, and hopefully you guys can see that she's blinking there. And that means that she can see my hand coming. You want to be careful that you don't hit the eyelashes or the long whiskers on the top or the bottom of the eye, because that can stimulate a blink as well. But it gives you an idea that she can see out of both eyes. Really important. The next thing I do is I just look at the eye itself and I make sure that I don't see any white spots, scars. You know, maybe there's a scar on an eyelid. Do I see anything to tell me that there's been something that's gone on in one or both eyes? The other thing that I'll look for is evidence on the face that an eye or both eyes has a lot of tearing that happens. And you can usually see because the hair will be missing in the area where the tearing happens. So just be aware of that. I stick my hands up here. I see, do we have air coming out of both nostrils? And is it even as they breathe? It's a good way to also get a respiratory rate and just be aware of what it is. If they're standing here still, they should be around 16 to 20 breaths a minute. If they're faster than that, it may be an indication that we've got something respiratory going on. While I'm here, being me, I will probably stick my nose in both nostrils and take a deep whiff to make sure I don't have an odor. You don't necessarily have to do that, but again, it's a down and dirty test. It's really easy. Next thing I'll do is just open the lips and see, what do the teeth look like? Is the tongue in an okay place? On Vespa here, actually, you can see, potentially, she eats from a hay net and she wears these front teeth funny. So that would be something I would be aware of. And I might see if I can talk with the seller a little bit more about why her teeth look like that. It's a common problem with hay nets. I'm pretty sure Tony, the office cat, has a blog about it. But If you feel brave, you can also stick a finger in and see if the teeth are sharp. Don't do that unless you've been taught how to do it by your veterinarian. It's pretty easy, but it's a great way to get bit. The next thing I will often do is just kind of run my hands over their head and see if I feel any swellings anywhere that are asymmetrical. For instance, on Vespa, because she belongs to a veterinarian, if you run your hands here, you guys can't really see it on video, but when I run my hands right here, she has a swelling right about here, at this level, right behind the chin strap for her halter. And it's because she has had an infected tooth recently. She's been on long-term antibiotics, and hopefully that's resolving. But with a quick feel of that, anyone can feel it. And again, that would be something you would want to bring up with your veterinarian. I will also take a look and see, do we have any indication in the ears or anywhere else that maybe she has some insect allergies. Insect allergies, you may be okay buying a horse with that, but I think you should know before you do that. So there we've got the head. We got a lot of good information there. The other thing that I learned was that, I can do this and she doesn't overreact to the things that I'm doing and the movements that I'm making. Again, going back to that personality of the horse I'm looking at, and is it something that jives with what I want in a horse? So moving on, let's talk about legs, because they're pretty important too, right? So a couple things I do first thing, just take an overall look and see what do the legs look like. On Vespa here, we have a glaring splint. Hopefully you guys can see that, but it's pretty big. Again, it's because she's owned by a veterinarian. It doesn't necessarily take her out of the running, right? But this is just one of those things that if I saw it, I would want to make sure that I had a conversation with my veterinarian about the fact that this horse has a huge splint on the inside of her leg, and is that going to be a future problem? I will also take my hand and just quickly run down all four legs and see if I feel any bumps or lumps. Maybe give a little tiny squeeze to the tendons. Horses are very well trained that means we're asking for the leg, but you want to see if there's any place where they're asking for the leg really quickly. The other one I'm going to look at is how are her legs? Do they come out of her body relatively straight? Does she have some width to her chest? She's resting a hind limb right now, but same thing on her hind legs. Does she stand really close with her hind legs, really far? How basically does she stand with her legs, and do I spot anything right away that is a red flag for me for moving forward? I'm also going to pick up all 4 feet and make sure that I can, right? That sounds simple, but it's going to make your life easier if you've got a horse that you can pick up all 4 feet on and they're well behaved for it. One of the other things I do with legs is I really pay attention to how horses stand with them. So while they're standing on cross ties or standing relaxed somewhere, I want to see what they do. So for instance, right now, we would say that Vespa is camped under. She's got all 4 legs underneath her. I'm going to watch her and see, is that something that she does regularly, as that may indicate that we have pain going on somewhere that we need to address. Likewise, I'm going to see, do they consistently rest one foot or the other? Now, horses have a favorite, but let's say she was resting that left hind like she was earlier. I ask her to stand on it, and not 2 seconds later, she's back resting it. I'm going to watch that left hind just a little bit closer and make sure that everything looks okay. On hind legs, you can also, just like we did on front legs, you just want to make sure that you basically run your hand down the leg and see if there's any lumps or bumps. I also want to look a little bit at angulation, and I'm going to ask the horse to stand a little bit more square. So, like right now, like I said, she's got especially this right hind up underneath herself. Not a great way to look at angles. So I'm going to see if I can get her to cooperate and stand a little bit better on it. There we go. So some things I'm just looking for. Does the hind, does the point of the butt come down in a straight line down the back of the leg? That is a good indicator of just good conformation, basically. A good conformation behind leads to sound horses. So I just want to see how this flows together and just have an idea in my head. Big things I look for is if I'm dropping this imaginary line, I don't want them hugely in front of or hugely behind. Don't worry necessarily about the fine details. Your veterinarian can go through that with a real pre-purchase. But on this, I just want to get an idea of, are things okay? And I'm also going to look at the hind legs and see, they should normally point out just a little bit on performance horses. We don't like performance horses to be straight up and down. It doesn't go well with power. So I want to see that they are turned out just a little bit. But again, I want to make sure that they aren't turned out different amounts, you know, so left hind goes out really far, right hind goes out a little, or that they're really crooked. So we want to look at those things on hind legs. Okay. While we're feeling around on these legs and looking for bumps, we're going to see if we've got any scars. Any scars anywhere, I usually run by my veterinarian and see, is there something about that scar that would concern me? It can sometimes be difficult, especially on the lower leg, to decide if a scar is over a joint, but that can indicate that that horse may have had joint issues in the past from an injury. So I may want to look at that joint a little closer. So note any scars or lumps and bumps, especially on the leg from the knee and the hock down, and make sure you go over those with your veterinarian as places you particularly want to have evaluated during an actual pre-purchase exam. The other thing I'm going to look at is, how does the foot attach to the leg? You know, does it come out in an appropriate angle, basically? So we want the hoof pastern axis. So we want this line right here to be one continuous line. We don't want it to come here and then the foot goes like this. We don't want it to come here and then the foot goes like this. We want it to be mostly a straight line. Vespa here has a little bit of a club foot, so she has a little bit of a break at the coronary band where the foot is just a smidge too tall. But I'll also look from the front and make sure that the coronary band makes a nice straight line and it's not, you know, sitting too high or too low on one side or the other. So, you know, I'll look straight from the front and make sure those look good. One of the big things to note about a horse like Vespa, see if she'll cooperate here with her feet a little bit more. Things you get asked to do as my horse. Whoa, good girl. Whoa, 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 whoa. She has, good girl. Vespa has two different front feet. This one is what I would call her normal foot, her left front. Her right front is a bit clubby. That is a big deal that she has mismatched feet. It's not necessarily a huge deal come the actual exam with my veterinarian, but I want to know about that as a vet going out to do a pre-purchase. So if you are looking at one and their front feet are not the same, then without a doubt, make sure you mention that to your veterinarian and be sure that they evaluate it, and if it's something that they think is at a manageable level, or if the club foot or the flatter foot are really bad and it's likely to cause significant issues. In case you haven't guessed from our previous videos, feet are a big deal for me, so I'm very aggressive about looking at feet. And you can get a big look at that. You know, like you can look at her and see she's got front shoes on. If shoes aren't something you want to do, then you want to talk to the seller about, why does this horse have front shoes on? Is there something about her feet that she requires them? If they don't have shoes on, I always pick up their feet. Well, I pick up their feet no matter what. But if they don't have shoes on, I really want to pick up the foot and get a good look at the hoof wall. With shoes on, I want to pick up the foot and just get a look at how the shoe is on the foot, and do I feel like it's on there straight or a little bit crooked. And when we pick her foot up, you can see her shoe is pointed a little bit to the inside. It's not quite straight onto the plane of her leg coming down. And that is because Vespa is a little bit pigeon-toed. So again, just little things that you want to be aware of that you can talk with your veterinarian about to have a better idea of if there's a long-term consequence to this or if it's something that's manageable. I'm also going to look at hind feet. In particular on her, we don't have shoes on. So I can pick up the foot and get a good look at how thick is the wall. Does everything look like she's got a pretty good foot on here? I don't see anything kind of screaming at me that we've got cracking or bruising or anything like that. She does have a little bit of thrush because her owner's not very good at treating it. It's also been raining like crazy. And then from the side, which I think will get better from here, this is the problem with well-trained horses. From the side, I want to get a look at this coronary band angle. And it's often helpful to take your phone out and just take a picture pointed straight at the side. I want to see what this coronary band angle is. And the reason I want to see that is I can then extrapolate where it hits here. Coronary band angles are super helpful in terms of knowing what the bones look like in the inside of foot. That angle, if I draw a straight line out the coronary band, it should come somewhere below the knee. If it does that, it tells me that the bones in the foot are in pretty good shape. And it also tells me a lot about the health of the top line. So that's really important. Now that I've looked at the head and the legs, believe it or not, the last thing I look at is the rest of the horse. And I'm going to go over the top line and just make sure that I don't see anything that bothers me. Big things you want to look for, and this is true kind of in everything that you're looking for on horses, is that they're symmetrical. So you don't have to be a veterinarian to see this. You just have to use your two hands. They work great for this. So first thing I'm going to do is take an overall look and see, do I see anything obviously pointing up, right? So Vespa has a decent curve to her top line. I don't see, often places you'll see a big dip here. She's got a tiny one, but not huge. I don't see backbones jutting up. I don't see hip bones poking out. If she was skinny, I would see that, and I don't. She's certainly not skinny. I don't see what's called a hunter's bump, where the top of the sacrum kind of points up. Don't see that. And I don't see a prominent tailbone, meaning that we probably don't have as much muscle as we should have on either side of the tail. So I just get an overall look at the top line and see how does it look. The next thing I'll do is I'll take my hands again and I just get a feel for things and see how they feel. And does she feel like she's pretty even from side to side? This is part of my pre-purchase exam as a veterinarian, but as a buyer, I can just get a quick look-see and feel. And you don't have to be super accurate about it. You're just looking for big things that are wrong. I'm also going to look at her neck and make sure that I think she has the same muscling from side to side on her neck as well. Some places where they'll lose muscle is right along the vertebral column, which is actually right here. So I just get a good look along here, and again, I get a feel of both sides and see, do I have any differences from side to side? So again, that's looking at the body. I'm also going to look and see, are there any scars that I may need to evaluate with my veterinarian. Vespa's got a scar here from a trailer incident when she was 3 that we don't like to talk about because it involves some rather childish behavior on her part. But anyway, this location, not necessarily a bad deal, but I want to make sure that I look for a lot of scars, something like that, to tell me that maybe this horse has been through something traumatic. So that is top line and body. Okay, we've watched them standing on cross ties, getting ready to get saddled, getting ready to go to work, to do what we want to do with them when we own them as our horse. We've watched how they interacted with us and with the seller. And we've gone over basically their whole body to look for lumps, bumps, scars, anything that is concerning to us and raises a red flag. So now what? We're going to go with a riding example just because that's what most of us do. But I have a set goal in mind of the things that I want to do. For instance, when I was looking recently, I wanted to walk, trot, and canter both directions. I wanted to see what it took for me to turn tight both directions at a canter, since that's what I need to do when I'm jumping. And I wanted to jump some jumps. I didn't necessarily need to do those at the height that I was thinking of, that I wanted this horse to be at the end. But I needed to do enough jumps that I felt like I knew how this horse was going to react to the jumping environment. I also made sure that all of those things were videoed by someone else. The trusty Justin Long behind the video camera right now is who did it. But you want to, if at all possible, video those things so that you can watch them a lot. And The reason I want to practice all those things on a video is I would also like to take that video and show it to my veterinarian and see if they see anything that raises a red flag. In particular, you want to make sure that you do lots of transitions. Those are areas where lamenesses will appear that you don't necessarily see elsewhere. Walk canter transitions are notorious for showing us some hind limb problems. And your veterinarian can often get you really good information off of those videos. So they may also direct things for the pre-purchase exam. So let's say they see something and they are going to go after that first to make sure that we make sure that's not a problem before moving on to the rest of things. So in some ways, they can often save you a lot of money. The other reason that I want a video is that I will watch it a lot of times. We all get enamored when we go to look at a new horse and we're caught up in how cute their forelock is or how pretty they are as a chestnut with a bunch of white socks. What we want to do is watch that video enough times that it's a little bit boring and see if there are things that we then pick up on. If you watch videos of a trial over and over and over, you'll often find that you pick up on things that you didn't catch the first, second, or 40th time through. Your spouse will not enjoy this process, so I recommend you do it by yourself. And finally, there's personality. And while this is not got anything to do with the veterinarian hat that I wear, it has a lot to do with the horse owner hat that I wear. And that is, have a good understanding of what you love and hate in a personality on a horse. Is this what you want to see, is a horse who's standing here quietly on the cross ties and not necessarily interacting? Or do you like it when a horse is standing here trying to bite the cross ties, they're jigging around? You know, they're an incredibly interactive horse, but they never stand still. Those are two different personalities, and if the second one is going to drive you insane, it doesn't matter how good the horse is, you're not going to like them. So be aware of the things that you like in a personality. Also, really sit down with a horse professional, maybe that's your trainer, or maybe some friends, and talk about what you do and don't like about in a horse. For instance, Vespa here, one of the things that I love about Vespa is she has her own engine. I don't have to constantly put my leg on her and keep her going. And when I had Paul, who you guys have seen in other videos, I loved Paul. He was an amazing horse, but it took a lot of leg to keep Paul going. And I learned that that's not necessarily my favorite thing. So thinking about all of those aspects of what you love and hate in a horse will also help you get the most out of a trial, or the pre-purchase as we're calling it today. And that's our pre-purchase exam. Make sure you check out all of our other videos, and thank you guys for being a patron.